Okay, guys, this is serious. This is the time to get out your pads and papers. This was on every survey that we were given. So this is really something that I'm excited about. So how many is worried about those unscrupulous attorneys, those deadbeat tenants? Are you tired of feeling like a target? Yeah, I see that. All right, it's time to fly under the radar. So we brought in Mr. Land Trust himself, the expert, and I got to tell you, I think we have him in every year and a half, 2 years, to make sure everybody's on the same page. Because Mr. Land Trust, Randy Hughs, and I got to tell you, out of 75 plus properties, every one of my properties is in a land trust. I know I'm a target. I know the government's looking for me so they can blame Toledo RIA for anything they can find that I've done wrong. So it didn't take me long to make sure we were covered and my assets were covered. Because it's very important, because those files don't go to the government. Those files are with you, in your home, in your file cabinet. Randy has been a full-time investor, bought his first house back in '69. Same year I did, right? So you could tell our age. So he's been after 10 years of investing, he decided to learn more how to protect those investments. And that's what he's here to share with you. He used land trust in his personal business for more than 50 years. If you're looking for anonymity, there's nobody else to look to than Mr. Land Trust himself, Randy Hughs. Flick your switch.
Testing. There we go.
Whoa.
Ooh, that's a little loud. Hello. Gosh, it's good to see all you folks. I drove over today from Champaign, Illinois. And fortunately, it wasn't snowing. Just to talk to you about why you shouldn't own real estate in your name. Does anybody right now in this room use a trust to hold title to their investment real estate? Okay, good. Quite a few people. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. The benefits of not holding title in your name. What it boils down to is there's really no benefit to holding title in your name. You get all the same benefits, principal pay down, appreciation, cash flow, all the things you're looking for, you get if the property's in a trust. So why would you ever own this stuff in your name? I'm going to tell you some real life stories tonight, folks, things that have happened to me over the last 50 years in this business, and the things that have happened to my students. I've been teaching this to other real estate investors for 22 years. And hopefully those stories will scare you into never buying real estate and putting your name on the title again, and getting off the deed now if it's in your name now. And certainly don't ever invest with somebody else going on the deed with them. That is fatal. It's worse than being married. So there's my standard disclaimer that says I'm not a lawyer or an accountant giving you legal or accounting advice. So you're about to discover how protecting your assets can actually cut the cost. And when you cut the cost, you increase profits, right? Pardon me? Oh. Can my tech guy help me, please? While he's doing that, I will take questions tonight. And we have a gentleman that's going to hand out a microphone. So if you have a question, raise your hand. He'll bring you the microphone, ask the question, and we'll get it answered, okay? So, this is a newspaper insert from the News Gazette in Champaign, Illinois. It is very thick, and I don't know if you can see it, a whole lot of little tiny lines. Every piece of real estate in Champaign County is in my hands. Every piece. And who owns it? Not who owns the paper, and who owns the real estate. Who owns the real estate? Every piece of real estate in my county. Now, you wouldn't do this, and I wouldn't do this, but some people in this world might do this. Joel Hagler. Gosh, he owns a lot of real estate. His name is all over in here. He must be rich. Right? Doesn't the general public think anybody who owns real estate is rich? You can have negative cash flow, you can owe more on it than it's worth, but they think you're rich. So I just might slip and fall on one of his properties tomorrow. Can you imagine thinking like that? There are a whole lot of people that don't want to work hard like you folks and spend the evening like this learning how to make wealth in real estate. They want to sit home, watch TV, and wait for you to build wealth and then sue you for it over some frivolous lawsuit. This is my 50th year in the business. I've seen a lot of crazy things happen. And if you're planning on succeeding in the long term in this business, you'll see some crazy things happen to you and some of your fellow investors. So the idea here is not only to learn how to build wealth by coming to these meetings, but you need to learn how to protect it along the way so you don't end up 10 or 20 or 30 years from now having somebody take your assets away from you. This is something I subscribe to. It's called the Court Reporter. It gets sent to me via email once a week. It's everything that gets recorded in my county recorder's office. You getting divorced? I know about it. You getting married? Did you buy a house? You refinance. Is the government after you for not paying your taxes? Did somebody sue you and you get a judgment? It's all in my hands. Everything about you that you record is in my hands. Does that make you nervous at all? It's not that we're trying to do something illegal, fattening, or immoral. It's just nobody's business what you own or control. And you need to learn how to protect it. So here's how this works. I'm sitting there at my computer one day, reading this on my screen, because it comes via email. And the very first category is judgment, memorandum of judgment. And I look at this and I see a very familiar name. In 1985, I bought a shopping center with a friend of mine. I insisted on putting the title to that shopping center in a land trust. In the year 2000, he moved out of Champaign and down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and became a very successful real estate developer. Made millions of dollars. Until when? Anybody got an idea? '08. Thank you. Could somebody bring me that red cup back there, please, on the table? The red cup right there? Thank you. In '08, he started losing millions of dollars. And the last time I talked to him, thank you, sir. Last time I talked to him, he had $23 million of liens and judgments against him. But I was only concerned about one. This one. Now, he hadn't lived in Champaign for 15 years at this point. A bank in Florida came all the way up to Champaign and recorded a memorandum of judgment against him, thinking, well, maybe he owns something up there, we'll go after it. 15 years. And they filed a lien for $3.2 million. Now, if I hadn't insisted on putting the title to that shopping center in a trust, I would have lost everything. 35 years of work, principal reduction, appreciation, cash flow, gone in a second. Because something I didn't even do. He did something. That's what will happen to you, folks, if you go on the title of real estate with somebody else. Don't ever do that. You can lose 35 years of hard work for no reason at all. $3 million is nothing to sneeze at. Can you imagine going home and telling your wife, honey, we lost everything today because I didn't protect our assets? That's a tough conversation to have, isn't it? So by using these trusts, you can not only cut your costs, which increases your profit, right? And you can eliminate the risk when you're selling a note or contracts. Is anybody buying and selling notes in here or doing contracts? Contract assignments? Some of you might be doing that. Great way to do that is using a trust. Does anybody in here have an LLC? Sure, everybody and their mother has an LLC, right? And I like LLCs. I use LLCs in my business every day, but not to hold the title. I know all the lawyers are telling you, title your real estate in an LLC, but here's what's going to happen to you. Let's say you have 10 single-family rental houses, and you title them all in one LLC. And there's a problem on one property, slip and fall, dog bite, whatever it is. They sue, they win, they get a judgment in excess of your insurance, if your insurance protects you in this claim. They come after the owner. They get a judgment against the owner. Who's the owner? LLC. Kind of sounds like they got a judgment against all 10 of your properties, right? That's why you don't put all your properties in one anything. Not in one trust, not in one LLC, and not in one corporation. I want you to learn how to put each of your properties into a separate trust so they're all insulated from each other. Now, they'll flow down to your LLC, will be the beneficiary of all those trusts. So you're still getting the asset protection benefits of the LLC. It's just that you're not risking all of them by titling them in the LLC. Plus, if you title your investments in an LLC, you've lost your anonymity, haven't you? Can't we look up who owns an LLC? In most states. To my knowledge, Wyoming, Nevada, Delaware, and Missouri don't publish the owners of LLCs. All the other states, they do. So part of what you're doing here is trying to get off the grid. So if your LLC is not in one of those states, it's public information. So you're right back to almost having your name on the deed, right? So, yes, we're going to use LLCs, but just to be the beneficiary of our trust. And avoiding frivolous lawsuits. Again, we're not trying to avoid our just responsibilities. I have never not paid a note. I've never paid a payment late. I've never gone bankrupt. But I can tell you this, if you come after me for some frivolous lawsuit, you're going to have a battle. Because you're not going to get my family's assets. If I've wronged you, I'll pay. If I haven't, I won't. So here's how this works. In the year 2000, I sold a house that my wife and I and my 2 daughters lived in. 6 months after closing, I got a letter from the buyer's attorney that said, "Dear Mr. Hughes, my buyer had to replace an air conditioner, some wood flooring, and all the toilets in the house. There's 6 toilets in this house. He had to replace them all. And if you'll just send us a check for $8,000, we won't sue you." Anybody ever got a letter like that? You will. If you stay in this business long enough, you will. What is this? What do we call this in modern day terminology? Shakedown, extortion. Yeah. And there are lawyers that specialize in this. They send out 10 letters a day. And most people will pay up or negotiate. It's easy money. But I'm not going to play that game. I was prepared. Asset protection is something you have to be prepared to do. You have to do it in advance. You can't buy fire insurance on your house when your house is on fire. You can't wait and say, "Oh, okay, I want to buy fire insurance." Can't do that. You can't buy car insurance on your car right after you had an accident. You have to be proactive to protect your assets. So I sent the lawyer a letter back and I said, "Dear Mr. Lawyer, you must have mistaken me for the owner. I'd suggest you check your files before you threaten to sue somebody." He sent me a letter back, said, "Well, my client, the buyer of that house, said that you lived there. Some people live in houses they don't own in America, right?" Oh, and Mr. Tough Guy went on to say, and if you just send us a check for $8,000 or tell us who the owner was, we won't sue you if you tell us who the owner was. So I sent him a letter back. I said, dear Mr. Lawyer, I think it was owned by some kind of a trust. I'm not really sure. They sound kind of complicated to me. I'm not sure how they work. But my last sentence said, good luck finding the owner. And you know what happened? What's that? He didn't have the courtesy to even send me a letter back. How's that work? What's going on? This was the conversation that I figured he and his client had that day. Well, Bob, it's not going to be so easy to screw this guy as the last 10 people we sent the letter to. What do you want to do? And Bob said, heck, let's just go sue somebody who owns real estate in their name. I'm not going to pay money to chase after some trust. So land trusts, which hold title to this real estate that we're talking about, are not designed as asset protection tools. They're not. But there's a prime example of how they are just by not having my name on the title. It just went away. Isn't that interesting? It just disappeared. Because here's how our legal system works. I run over Dennis, right? Yeah. I run over Dennis's dog. He goes to his lawyer and says, I want to sue Randy Hughs. He killed my dog. And the lawyer looks at him and says, well, wait a minute, what's that guy's name? And he turns to his computer and he types in Randy Hughs on the county website. Now, if the printer starts printing all these addresses that are in Randy Hughes's name, Dennis's attorney turns to him and says, I think we got a pretty good case here. But if the attorney types in my name and the printer doesn't budge, well, Dennis, I'm not, I'll sue this guy. I'll go after him, $1 million. All I need you to do, Dennis, is get your checkbook out. Just write a check to my escrow. It's only $10,000 to start with. And when I run out of money, I'll ask for another 10. But I'll chase this guy until hell freezes over. That's the game, right? You see how important it is to not own this stuff in your name? It's just that simple. What's the tool of the smart real estate investor? Don't let it intimidate you. It's just a few pieces of paper. You need a trust agreement, which is a contract between the trustee and the beneficiary. If Dennis is a beneficiary, I could be his trustee, okay? It's a contract. And you need a deed in trust, which is very much like the deeds you're accustomed to already. It's like a warranty deed, but it has a little extra verbiage in it. And some of that extra verbiage says that the beneficial interest in this trust is personal property, not real estate. Isn't that interesting? So if we took this building and we put it into a trust and we own the trust, we own personal property. We don't own real estate. We just converted it from real estate to personal property, like that chair is personal property. Why is that significant? I'll cover that a little bit later, but they're different laws. What controls real estate law is different than what controls personal property law. And it's very significant to you, and we'll get to that. So we need two people, a trustee and a beneficiary. And the cost of creating a trust, $0. What's it cost to create an LLC here in Ohio? 99 bucks? That's a pretty good value. It's 500 in Illinois and 800 in California, so you're getting a good deal there. But you got some paperwork to do, right? And they publish the owners. So my point is you can't afford to, and it's a lot of paperwork and a lot of hassle to create a separate LLC for each of your properties. And plus you lose your anonymity. So I want to teach you how to do this. That's my job. It's my avocation, is teaching real estate investors how to put their property into trust and do it on their own. so it doesn't cost them anything. If you think about it, you're going to be dealing with a whole lot of property over your investment lifetime. And you really can't afford to pay somebody, because if you can even find an attorney that knows how to do this, they're going to charge you, depending on what part of the country you're in, anywhere from $500 to $1,500 per trust. So it gets expensive fast. What kind of property can we put into these trusts? All kinds of real estate. Commercial buildings, apartment buildings, contracts, options. Is anybody buying options on real estate here? This gentleman? Good. There's no competition. You got the whole market. Options are a wonderful way to make money in this business, especially in a rising market. So you can put all that stuff in a trust. Air rights, mineral rights. I had a guy call me from Kentucky a couple years ago, and he said, I want to buy your home study course and learn how to create trusts. And I said, okay, what are you going to do with it? He said, well, I've got 1,500 oil and gas leases in Kentucky, and some of them go boom, and some of them go bust, and I don't want to put them all in one entity, so he bought my home study course and created 1,500 land trusts for $597. That's a pretty good deal, right? So any real estate related asset can go in these land trusts. Who can do this? Well, there's no licensing requirement. There's no continuing education. Anybody with a temperature can form a trust. So you all qualify, I think. Might be one or two of you that are asleep back there. It might not qualify. Why use a trust to make more money? You get privacy and asset protection. You make greater profits because you reduce your expenses, and we'll get into that a little bit later if we can. They're excellent when you combine them with the LLC. You get the privacy element of the trust and the asset protection benefit of the LLC. And they're free. What else do you want? And you can do it yourself with my personal help. I will help you form that first trust, get you a nice template on your computer, and after that, it takes you 5 minutes to create a trust. You fill in who's the trustee, who's the beneficiary, you hit print, you got a trust. And I'll help you. I'll hold your hand through that first trust and get you going. Who's not using this profit and privacy tool? Well, owners that put their name on the deed. Please don't ever buy another piece of real estate and put your name on the deed. So hopefully you're going to join the club today of smart real estate investors that hold title in a trust. I'll coach you through that first trust agreement, but the most important thing I can offer to you is I answer my phone. Is that impressive? I think it is. Nobody ever answers their phone when I call them anymore. Their mailbox hasn't been set up yet. It's full. We don't take calls at this time, especially after I buy something. Then they're never going to answer the phone, right? I'm not that way. I'm overboard the other way. I answer my phone 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time. So if you ever have a problem or a question, you call me. That's service. Okay? Oh, I found this slide in a magazine. People most likely to be sued in America today. Do you see yourself up there anywhere? Maybe more than once. What's interesting to me is that note at the bottom. 97% of lawsuits filed do not go to trial. What does that tell you? They settle. Your lawyer tells you got a good case. His lawyer tells him he's got a good case. So you sue the heck out of each other for 5 years, and usually nothing happens except the lawyers get rich. And you guys end up settling for something. That tells me that only 3% of the lawyers in the United States know how to go to trial. The rest of them are professional settlers, right? It's unfortunate our legal system is devolved into this system. It's not about who's right and who's wrong anymore. It's about who's got the smartest lawyer, who's got the most money, I mean, just think about it. Let's say you sued the richest guy in town here. For whatever reason, you're justified. Do you think you're going to win? There's no way. He will delay, his lawyer will do everything to postpone, and you'll run out of time, money, or inclination, and you'll give up. Whether you're right or wrong, you'll give up. That's how the game's played. I have a home study course. It looks like this. I wrote it all. It's 95 pages of easy-to-read print that teaches you how to create a trust. If all this course did for you is prevent you from sitting across the table from these guys once in your life, do you think it'd be worth it? Yeah, it's expensive to sit across the table from those folks. Very expensive. I had a lawyer call me out of Chicago, and he hired me to be an expert witness in a case involving a land trust out of Chicago. And I don't have time to give you all the details, but it's a very, very interesting case. And I testified, and this poor lady who's dealing with an ex-husband who basically stole her property is just getting bled dry. They've been in court they've been in this legal battle for 3 years, and she is just being bled dry. And so there's nothing, she didn't do anything wrong, but married the wrong guy. So don't worry about bin Laden and all his buddies. They're not a big threat to you anymore. Your biggest threat are these guys, the contingency fee lawyers. So I speak a lot in California. I live out there in January and February each year, and there's an attorney, a lady attorney out there that we go and have lunch together once in a while in San Diego. And we went to lunch one day, and the top license plate was the car parked in front of us. And I said, I got to take a picture of that. The plate on the bottom is an attorney in my town, Mr. Suam. So it got me to thinking, who's looking out for me? We've got these sharks swimming in the waters out here. Who's looking out for me? And more importantly, who's looking out for you, right? That's your question. Who's looking out for you? So I made a list of everybody looking out for you. You want to see it? Not your insurance company, not your attorney. Now, I'll tell you, I have an attorney. I use him on every transaction. He's a smart guy. But he's not laying awake at night worrying about my assets. That's not his job. That's my job, and it's your job to do it for your family. So I'm not saying don't use an attorney. I think you should use an attorney on every transaction. But just don't think he's going to be worried about your assets. It's not his job. Not your tenants, not your family members, not your business partners. They're worried about themselves. Not your accountant. Oh, that's wrong, isn't it? I took it off. Nobody is looking out for you. You got to do it yourself. And it's really fun. It really is fun. And I will teach you how to make it fun. Here's just a brief history on myself. This is the first house I bought in 1969, a 2-bedroom, 800 square foot ranch that I rented to other college students when I was in college. I lived at home because Mom had let me live for free. And I bought that house with pop bottle money. Does anybody know what pop bottle money is? Back in the day, they had a deposit on pop bottles, right? And I scoured the streets of the town I grew up in and the gutters, and people in those days would finish their pop and just throw it out the window. So I'd pick them up, take them to the grocery store, and cash them in. So by the time I was 19, I had $850, and that's what I needed to buy this house. I took over, it was a veteran that owned the house, so I assumed the veteran's loan. I'm not a veteran. Back in the day, you could assume a veteran's loan for $35 assumption fee. So I assumed his loan, and I was off and running in the real estate business. My point here is this. My father was an alcoholic, My parents got divorced, and my father got in a car one day when I was 16, and he got in the car and drove away and never came back. So my point is, I didn't have anybody to teach me any business skills, and I certainly didn't have anybody to give me any startup money, which would have been really nice, right? So why does that matter? When you work really, really hard for a long time to build some wealth, the last thing you want to do is go back to zero, because it ain't no fun living without money, is it? I mean, whoever said money doesn't solve all problems didn't have any money, right? Because I know in my life, money has solved probably 98% of the problems I've ever had. And so you know, when you start with zero or less than zero and you build something, you don't want to lose it, and therefore you want to protect it. And that's all I'm trying to do, is teach you how to protect those assets you're acquiring. Anybody have any questions? No questions? Yes. I did see my dad. No, he never came back. He disappeared to California. We found him out there. Tried to get some child support, but that didn't work. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I forgot the microphone. Sorry.
So if you have the land trust and you title the property is the name of the land trust, but no?
No, that's another problem that attorneys tell their clients, to name the land trust 123 Vine Street. I think that's a mistake. Now, if you are so inclined that you got to name your trust after a street address, use somebody else's address. You see where we're going? We want to throw the dogs off the scent from day one.
No, I'm just saying whatever you name it, that's the name that's
On the title.
title. Okay.
Right.
We did this with two that we bought through settling my mother-in-law's estate, and then the attorney put our LLC as the trustee. So it put the name of the trust, and then it said the LLC as trustee.
You don't want to do that.
Me up?
Yeah, you don't want to make your own LLC the trustee. There are several reasons, and let me just give you a couple why you don't want to. Number one, if you or your entity is the trustee, and you or your entity is the beneficiary, you don't have a trust. It's called merging of interests under the law. And to my knowledge, Florida is the only state that allows you to do that. Why you would ever want to do it, I don't know, because you're back to giving up your anonymity. They can look up who owns your LLC, bang, they got you. It's much better and easier to have an individual as a trustee than an entity. Follow-up question?
So if I buy your course, you're going to help me untangle this.
That's right. I have a whole chapter in this course on how to name and number your trust. And a whole chapter on who can be and who should be your trustee. Now, the short answer is it should be somebody with a different last name than you and somebody who lives out of the county in which the property is located. Why? To sue a trust, you have to sue the trustee. So you want your trustee to be as far away from the fire as possible, right? Make it as difficult as possible to find and serve that trustee. Those are great questions, and you just won
Yay!
a mouse pad with Land Trust University on it. There was a question in the back, wasn't there? Go ahead.
What about if you already have a couple properties now, and can you just go ahead and transfer them into a trust?
Sure can, yeah. Just you sign a deed from you to your trustee, record it, and it's out of your name. Yep. In the back there.
My apologies if you've already answered this. What is your background? Are you yourself a lawyer? And then if you're not, how did you learn all this?
I'm not a lawyer. I have taken a little bit of law classes, but I'm not a lawyer. I had about 15 houses in my name before I woke up to realize how stupid that was, that you could look me up. You can go to the courthouse records and find out what I owned, what it was assessed for, and what the debt was. With those three numbers, you know my net worth. That's pretty dumb, isn't it? So I started researching different ways of holding title, and that's how I ended up with the land trust. It's been around for thousands of years, over 100 years in the United States, over thousands of years in England. So they've been time tested. There was another question there?
I turned to Randy in land trusts when the media would always track me down whenever a new landlord or rental law was passed. And the time that they caught me in the dentist chair, I was done. They barged right in the office, media and everything, and that's it. My properties are going out of my name.
This gentleman up here? And then, no, wait a minute, there's a man behind you, and then we'll go to you, ma'am.
Okay, actually, I came to know about trust 1 year ago. Then I talked with 3 attorneys and none of them could give me the answer.
Yeah.
And they all told me that,
You can't do that here.
they told me that LLC is the good way of protecting. Why you need trust?
Well, we just talked about that, why you shouldn't use an LLC to own it. The LLC does have better asset protection than the land trust, but let's use them both together in conjunction, get the best of both worlds. But it's a good news, bad news situation. It's very difficult to find any lawyers that know how to do this. It's because they weren't taught it in law school. So if they didn't take it upon themselves to learn after law school, they don't know a thing about it. The good news is if you find somebody that can teach you how to do it, then you are operating at a level that most attorneys don't understand. And I think that's a good thing. So right now you're kind of like a submarine going across the water doing your business, and everybody can see you, and everybody can take a pot shot at you. And I want to teach you how to use a trust and go down and dive and keep doing your business, but nobody sees you doing what you're doing. This man, the lady up here, right here, sir, yeah.
How are you sure when you have the trustee that they don't go rogue and sell your property?
That is a great question, and always on everybody's mind. And it was my concern when I first took those 15 houses out of my name. I thought, God, I don't own. Ownership is proof of everything. I was really nervous. But you soon find out that the trustee can't do anything without written permission from the beneficiary. In writing, you got to show the title company a copy of the trust agreement, a copy of the letter of direction, prove who the beneficiary is. There are lots of checks and balances. And that's why the trusts have been around a long time. But that is an excellent question, and you just won a coffee cup with the Land Trust University on it. Yes. Yes, sir. Wait a minute.
If you decide that you want to sell your properties after they're in a trust, would it make it more difficult to sell, or would you need that trustee at the
Yeah,
closing?
yeah. Your trustee would sign the deed because they're in title. And I explain this in the course guide as to how do you do this when you're buying and how do you do this when you're selling. But basically, my trustees are all out of state. I live in Illinois. All my investment properties in Illinois, I don't use Illinois trusts. And if I lived in Ohio and my investment properties in Ohio, I probably wouldn't use an Ohio trust. I'm getting there. Okay. And the reason why is there's no federal land trust law. It's all state by state. And some states, in my opinion, have better trust laws than other states. And only 6 states actually have a land trust statute. Ohio's not one of them, but Ohio recognizes the validity of a land trust. So if I lived in Ohio, I might form a trust in Florida or Virginia to hold title to my real estate in Ohio. What a mess is that? See, we're going to throw the dogs off at the very first gate that opens up.
One other question. Would that trustee's name appear on the check when you close, or are they?
Well, yeah,
are they entitled to?
That's a real good question, and I formed something I call the Land Trust University about 15 years ago, and in there I put lots of really cool things that you can use in your business. And one of those cool things is a letter that you give to the title company, and I ran this by Chicago Title. They're the largest title company in America, and they approved it. And basically the letter says, it's from the trustee saying, please give the money to the beneficiary of this trust, and they sign off. So yeah, there's little tricks of the trade there, but good question, but I've solved that problem. Wait a minute, we got
Do you address in your who files taxes on the Schedule E?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. For the last 2 years, I've been working on a project, and I just finished it a month ago and put it in the Land Trust University for my students. 2 things. One is a packet you hand to your lawyer, because again, you need these lawyers to go to your closings with you. Explains to him what a land trust is, all the law that backs it all up, everything. You just hand that to him and the work is done. And a packet you hand to your accountant with sample tax returns in there on how to file a tax return when your property's in a trust or an LLC. That's a tremendous value. You get that in the Land Trust University. I also do a monthly coaching call, and I'm the only guy on the planet writing a land trust newsletter for real estate investors. You get all that in the Land Trust University. Yes, sir? Another question?
If a property is sold and it's in trust LLC, can the beneficiary sign over that when it's sold?
Well, you said if it's in trust in an LLC, it's either in one or the other. So let's say it's in trust and the LLC is the beneficiary. No, the beneficiary can't sell it, but they direct the trustee to deed out of the trust and sell it. So you go to closing with this deed that's signed by your trustee, and they give you the money and you give them the deed. But you didn't sign anything. Okay, let's take 1 or 2 more questions and then we need to move on.
Does your trust have to have a bank account?
No, these trusts don't have a bank account, they don't get an FEIN number, and they don't file a tax return. They are a pass-through in the eyes of the IRS.
I don't know if I missed it, but what happens if the trustee becomes ill, can't sign, dies, and also gets in financial trouble themselves, and they're being sued?
That's a great question, and you earned the last gift of the day that I have. Would you hand that gentleman this, please? That's a mouse pad with the university logo on it. I've had 9 trustees die in the last 40 years. Would you like to be my trustee? It was all natural, but when the first one died, I panicked, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to lose my property. The title's in a dead man's name. So I just sat back, and like every good American, I did nothing. I just sat back and waited to see what would happen. Was there any dead trustee police out there or what? And about a year later, I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, oh my God, why do I need a live trustee? Right. I need a live trustee if I'm doing 1 of 2 things, or both. I'm selling the property, I need that trustee to sign the deed. I'm financing the property, I need the trustee to sign the mortgage. But if I'm not doing 1 of those 2 things, I don't need a live trustee, do I? And the title of that property stayed in that dead man's name for 15 years until I decided to sell the property. And 3 days before closing, I went to the Chicago Title and I said, here, my trustee died, here's an appointment of a new trustee, and I was back in business. Wow, did I learn a lot in that transaction. Remember what I said earlier about suing a trust? Does anybody remember what I said? What did I say? Pardon me? They have to serve the trustee with a lawsuit. Is anybody getting this stuff?
6 feet under.
Go ahead.
Sir, my properties are all bank loans, so can I still change that indeed?
Yeah, if all your properties are in an LLC, let's say you got 10 of them in there, you'd have to sign 10 deeds, deed them all out into individual trusts, and then make the beneficiary of those trusts the same LLC. So you took it out of this pocket and you put it into this pocket.
But we all are financed by the bank.
That's all right, doesn't matter if they're financed by the bank. Yes,
I have a question in regards to income tax.
okay.
You said that, I may not have understood this correctly. When it's in a trust, land trust, you do not have to file it with your income tax.
Right, it goes on your Schedule E. If you own real estate in your name right now, it goes on your 1040 Schedule E, correct? If you own real estate in your LLC, in the land trust with an LLC being the beneficiary, it still goes on your Schedule E, but in a different spot. depending on how your LLC is formed. If it's a disregarded entity, it goes on the same spot on the Schedule E.
So you therefore can still deduct all the deductions
Yes.
that you usually deduct?
Yes, sure can. Okay, hold the questions. We'll get back to them. I want to move on here. I don't want anybody falling asleep on me, okay? So I was speaking in Southern California once to a group just like this, and after the meeting was over, this guy came up to me and started talking, and I said, wait a minute. I got to get a recorder out and videotape this. And here's what he said.
I have to tell you, as an attorney here in California, I pride myself on the ability to basically break apart anything legally. And what you presented is beyond my ability to pierce. The asset protection and methodology, especially the specific order of going out of state using some of your high-end methods, is just mind-blowing to me. It's something that I can't find a way to pierce it, and I've tried.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those comments. It's nice to have an affirmation like that from time to time. That you're not always believed. When you teach this stuff, some people think, well, maybe that's all theory, but it doesn't really work. So when you hear it from somebody that's in the streets, going after people from time to time, it's nice to know that we put up a barrier you can't get through. So thank you.
You're welcome. You absolutely have. Thank you.
Okay.
There was a shark in the back of the room, right? And I didn't know it until the meeting was over. But it was a nice thing for him to come up and say that. He didn't have to do that. But he was talking about that high-end method is what I just mentioned about using an out-of-state trust. Because if it's an out-of-state trust and an out-of-state trustee, in some instances, depending on what kind of a lawsuit it is, they got to go out of state to sue the trust, which gets expensive. Yes, sir.
Hang on.
Wait a minute. Yes, sir.
I assume that your study course talks about the best states to establish the trust in?
Yes. And in the Land Trust University, I have a file with 50 Word documents in there, one for each state. In every state, I've given you, if it has a trust statute, I give you that. I give you the case law. I give you cases that have been decided. I give you title companies, trustee services, and lawyers, state by state. That's a lot of information. That's all in there for you.
So one of the issues you have when you do stuff in an LLC is wherever the property is located, whatever state it's in, that's where the LLC should be in, because if you ever have to evict somebody, the court won't recognize an LLC in another state. Does that also apply to the trust?
Well, no, because you, as somebody said earlier in the meeting, if your property's in trust, you're going to have a lawyer, maybe, represent you in evictions. For 35 years as a landlord, I did my own evictions until in my county, they brought in a new judge. And he evidently read the law, and the law says that if the property's in trust, you either got to bring the trustee or the beneficiary for an eviction. Well, my trustees are all out of state. I'm not going to ask them to come in for a simple eviction. And I'm not going to, sure as heck, not going to tell the judge who the beneficiary is, so I hire a lawyer until they bring in a new judge, and then he'll probably change the system again. So it depends on what your system is in your county. But they're going to represent the trust, because the trust owns the property, not the beneficiary. Yes, sir.
All right, trial by fire. Here's how good that this works, okay? You're always saying, what's going to happen, worst case scenario? My trustee was going through a horrible divorce. And the first thing the other attorney wanted was a list of all these properties, what they were worth, appraisals, all of them. And so I said, he's only the trustee. And they wouldn't listen because they had no idea what a trust was. So I got subpoenaed. So I brought in the information on subpoena, and what I brought in was 20 different appointment of trustees to somebody else. And they go, why wasn't this recorded? Right at the bottom of it, it says, this document is not to be recorded.
Yeah, you don't have to record that.
It's in my file at home, and that's what I gave them. They were a little mad, just to say the least.
Well, yeah, they always are when you outthink them. Okay, so how do we actually do this? How do we set up a trust? Here are the steps. You start with a trust agreement. I provide that for you. My trust agreement I'm on the 6.0 version. It's 40 pages. Now you could form a trust on the back of a piece of paper like this, and it'd be legal, but it's not going to hold a whole lot of water. I've got a 40-page trust agreement that I've worked at for the last 40 years of putting really cool stuff in there. I call them like poison pills. For example, if my trustee even smells a lawsuit coming, she must immediately resign and forward all documents to the new trustee, who just happens to live in another state. 2, you create the deed and trust, you record the deed and trust, and then you do what I do best, sleep. I love to sleep. You remember the first time you bought a piece of real estate and you put your name on a $100,000 or a $200,000 note? That's a lot of money. And you went home that night and you put your head down and you thought, oh my God, what did I do? This is kind of the opposite effect, you know. You get your name off of it and you sleep better at night. You really do. So if we break it down further, the trust agreement, you start with a good trust agreement that I provide you, and I have bold printed instructions throughout the trust agreement explaining how to fill out the trust agreement. The trustee and the beneficiary sign it, and you keep that for your records. You do not record that trust agreement. That's your privacy. Yes, sir.
Back on the last screen, step 3 said that you record the trust.
Mm-mm. Said you record the deed.
Or you record
Record deed and trust. The deed gets recorded, not your trust agreement. Okay? You do not record the trust agreement. That's a biggie that some attorneys don't understand. To create the deed, you start with a deed and trust, and I provide some forms in the course material. The seller, if you're doing this the right way, the seller's the grantor on the deed, and the trustee, your trustee, is receiving title, so they're the grantee on the deed. That way you're never in the chain of title. And don't put your home address on the deed for the tax bill. That might kind of give you up. Always use a post office box, folks. Always. In fact, I would recommend you go home tonight, and if you have a mailbox, take an axe and cut it down. And forever, from this day forward, make sure all your mail goes to a P.O. box. Yes, sir.
I know you want to stop, but you just said about the grantor and the grantee.
Uh-huh.
If the beneficiary dies and these houses now are going to be, you know, is there the step up in basis? Or does this have to be put into the, you know, living revocable?
No. No, and let me delay that. I've got a diagram up here that's going to answer that question and be a lot easier to understand. So step 3, you record the deed and trust in the county recorder's office, the county where the property is located, not where you live and not where you form the trust, but where the property is located. And then they'll stamp it and give it to you right then, or if you mail it in, they'll stamp it and mail it back to you, and you keep that in your records as proof of ownership. And then you get to sleep better at night. Okay, let's answer that question. This is what I call the land trust funnel. Let's say you got 3 rental properties, you put them in 3 separate trusts, and you make it one LLC, the beneficiary. So you got anonymity, nobody knows what's going on, but if they do sue and they get through that trust, they're going to hit an LLC. Now, if you want to do a little estate planning, you can make the successor member of your LLC your living trust. So here's how it works. I was married for 41 years, and my wife died 7 years ago. And this is exactly how her assets were set up. So the moment she died, everything dropped down into her living trust. Now here's the big difference, folks, between a living trust and a land trust. The living trust is trustee driven. The trustee makes all the decisions on what happens inside that trust. and the beneficiaries just go along for a ride. The land trust is just the opposite. It's beneficiary driven, and the trustee just goes along for the ride. And many, many legal minds don't understand that. They always think the trustee is in control. They're not with a land trust. So, the moment my wife died, everything dropped down into this trust. We didn't have to do probate. Nobody saw anything. If you go through probate, if you own real estate right now in your name and you die tonight, that asset has to go through probate, which means they tell the public everything you owned and who owns it now. That doesn't sound very smart, does it? If you use trust, it all bypasses the public purview. So everything she controlled dropped down into her living trust, and guess who the trustee is? Me. My 2 daughters are the beneficiaries, but they have no say-so. I say everything for that trust. And my wife was the trustee for my living trust. Now that takes us into an asset protection concept, and I know many of you, I heard the intro this evening, and many of you are here because you're interested in asset protection. So internalize this. Don't mix your assets. My wife and I married 41 years. Probably 25 or 30 of those years we were financially divorced. That means she had her stuff and I got my stuff, and never did we do that. Why? If we did that and I get sued and I lose, I can lose everything, right? If she's got her stuff and I got my stuff and I get sued and I lose, I can probably live off a half. I can't live off zero. So don't sign notes together, don't buy property together, don't have a land trust together, don't have an LLC together. Keep everything separate, and you will live a happy life. Financially, anyway. Any questions on the funnel? Oh, the step up in basis. When my wife died, we got a step up in basis on everything that she had in her trust. Yes, you can use a trust. I have a Roth IRA that I buy property with, but I always title it in the land trust. Can you buy property? Can you use a land trust with an IRA? I think was the question. So yes, you can. You make the IRA or the Roth the beneficiary of the land trust. I don't want the name of my Roth IRA on a title to real estate. Too risky. I'll make it the beneficiary. Yes, sir.
Looking at this, I see you have the living trust in there. How would I invoke a irrevocable trust?
Well, what we're talking about here tonight are grantor revocable trusts. An irrevocable trust is, it does have more asset protection to it, but what happens is you end up filing a tax return with an irrevocable trust. And if you don't take all the money out of that trust by the end of the year, it's taxed at the highest rate the IRS has. So the reason why I don't put property into a living trust when I'm alive is because, in my opinion, they're worthless when you're alive. But the moment my wife died, her living trust became irrevocable, which is much harder to crack than a revocable trust. And so they're terrific when you die. That's the only problem. You got to die to get the benefit. But there is a terrific benefit. Okay. I wrote a little booklet that has over 50 reasons to use a trust. And we're going to cover 12 of them right now because we don't have time to go through all 50. Avoids the property going through probate. Well, we just talked about my wife and her estate. No probate. Totally private. Judgments don't attach to the property. Remember my example of the shopping center that we almost lost? The judgment against my friend did not attach to the property. Why? Because he didn't own the property. The trust owned it. That's a biggie. Easier and safer management with multiple owners. I'm not saying don't invest with people, just do it in a way that protects both of you. Anybody wholesaling or doing contract assignments? If you are, use a trust. Don't use your personal name. No registered agent, so you don't have the $100 fee every year for the LLC. It's a pass-through, no tax return. Protection against unhappy tenants. How many people are in here are landlords? Just about all of us, right? So let me give you a couple of landlord examples. The beautiful thing about these trusts is you can honestly say you don't own the property anymore. And it just changes the whole dynamic of your relationship with your tenants. For example, if I'm the landlord for Dennis, I say, Dennis, here's your rent increase for next year, it's 10%. If I'm the owner, and he knows I'm the owner, he's going to say, well, what do you mean? I saw you drive up in that new Cadillac. You don't need 10%. An argument starts, right? But if I say, here, Dennis, this is your 10% increase for next year, and Dennis says, well, why am I getting that? Because the owner told me. I'm just the property manager. I hate my job. I can't wait till the bar's open. Leave me alone. Here's your 10%. You see the difference? You're not responsible for anything. You're a low-life property manager. That's what you want to be. So I get invited once a year to Cancun to speak to a group called a Real Estate Mastermind Group. A guy out of Dallas, Texas, invites about 30 people from all over the country, and we go to Cancun and we sit around the pool and we primarily drink. But we talk a little business so we can deduct it all. So I'm talking a little business with this guy and his wife sitting across the table from me, and he said, oh, Randy, thank you very much for writing that land trust course. I said, oh, you got a copy? And he said, yeah, we bought it. I said, why'd you buy it? He said, well, we live in Dallas. We had 15 houses, single-family rental houses, all in our name. And Friday night, one night, a knock at the door about 9:30. One of our tenants. He said, hey, my toilet's plugged up. I need you to come over. And my friend said, hey, man, it's 9:30 on Friday night. You know, I'll be over first thing in the morning. And the tenant said, no, you don't understand. You're coming out tonight. Big brouhaha. They had to call the police to have him removed from their living room. This is why you don't own this stuff in your name, right? So I had a lady from Florida. She called me and said, Randy, I need to get your home study course fast. I said, what's the hurry? She said, well, I'm down here in Florida. I've got 8 rental properties all in my name and my own personal residence, and I just got a call from one of my tenants who said, a man knocked on the door looking for me. And I think I know who he is, and I'm not interested. And the light bulb went off in her head that night. You don't own this stuff in your name. What had he done? He just typed in her name, printed out 9 addresses, and he goes knocking door to door till he finds out where she lives. Now, if that doesn't scare you lady landlords into using a trust, nothing will. That's what we call modern-day stalking. That's how they do it these days, right? Don't own this stuff in your name. Don't be an owner. Be a low-life property manager. Okay? Avoid the due on sale clause, transfer tax, reassessment at sale, and closing costs. What else do you want in life? Those are all money-saving items. You benefit from all those when you are using a trust. And you avoid ID theft because you're not signing stuff that gets recorded in the county recorder's office. And it keeps it off your debt. How does that work? Well, here's how it works. If you finance property in a trust, your trustee signs the mortgage as collateral for your loan. You sign a note and or a personal guarantee, right? That doesn't get recorded. What gets recorded is the mortgage. And the mortgage is signed by the trustee who has no personal liability. So it kind of sounds like you can own millions of dollars worth of real estate and not be in the county records, right? They could pull a credit report on you and nothing would show. Can you see the benefit of that? Is this stuff fun or what? Am I the only guy having fun here? I think this is fun. Repossess, don't foreclose, real estate sold on an installment contract. I have found that there are a tremendous number of American people who will never qualify for a conventional mortgage. They're self-employed less than 2 years. They are in the cash business. They have a low credit score. They don't have a Social Security number. It's a tremendous market, and I encourage you to tap into it. I love doing this. I buy a house, I close at 9 in the morning, and I sell it at 3 in the afternoon to a contract buyer, somebody who can't qualify for a mortgage. They're good people, they pay their bills, they work hard, and they got a down payment of 20% or more. So I'm being the bank, right? How do you think banks got rich? Where can this go wrong? You always need to ask yourself in this business, where can this go wrong? Exactly right. They stop paying. If you do it the conventional way, like the banks do, and they stop paying, you have to foreclose. Well, in my town, it takes 10 grand in about a year, 10 grand in legal fees, and about a year to foreclose. I'm not going to do that. I sell the trust, the beneficial interest in a trust on an installment contract. That's personal property, remember? How does that work? Have you ever financed a vehicle and gone to the bank? Right? They hold the title. How long? Until you pay them off. That's exactly how it works with me. It's personal property. I hold the title. They don't have any rights to encumber my property. And I hold the trust until they pay me off in full. And if they default, I repossess. Just like the bank would come and get your truck out of the driveway with the repo man, you know? I repossess, and that takes me 30 days. Yes, sir. Wait a minute, we got a question.
I want to make sure I have this correctly, although I've lost it, because this is powerful.
This is powerful.
Like selling on a land contract, lease purchase, that after in the state of Ohio, after 1 year is defined, turns into a land contract. Now, if I want to sell a piece of property, owner finance on installment, so do I understand this correctly? What I'm not selling the real estate, I'm selling the trust, which is then really a piece of personal property, the trust is, that have an asset that's the real estate, so that then if they quit paying, it's simply a breach of contract for the personal property. Am I saying this correctly?
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
So then the only thing then to get somebody out then no longer is a foreclosure process, but rather it is simply an eviction at best.
Yes, if they refuse to move out, you evict them under a month-to-month lease.
Okay, so if this is an inappropriate question, you just say, well, I should be later behind, you know. So, has this been tested? Are you aware of any case law in Ohio where this has been tested and the courts have affirmed that the land trust is personal property and it doesn't get converted into a land contract like lease purchases eventually? It used to be a lease purchase was a lease until they purchased it.
Yeah.
Until the courts determined that after 1 year, it metamorphoses, or it changes into a land contract, and that requires a foreclosure. So, is there any case law that substantiates that you're aware
Well, there's case law that substantiates that the beneficial interest in a land trust is personal property. That's pretty much common knowledge everywhere. As far as an actual test case in Ohio challenging what we're talking about here, no, I'm not aware of it.
That's fine.
However, my experience has been, out of all that I've done, I did 8 of them last year, But out of all these that I've done, I've had 4 people walk away or leave. None of them I had to evict. And you got to understand their mindset at that time. And they're walking away from a house. They haven't made their payments. They have much more problems. And they don't have money to hire a lawyer anyway, but they could go to legal aid, I suppose. But they just have other problems in their life, and they leave.
Yeah, that just, what you just described means there's, under no circumstances should you ever sell a property out of land contract again.
Yeah, I would never sell on a contract for deed. Never, never, never.
Ever. Or a lease option. Well, that's different.
Well, if you're going to do a lease option, I teach you how to do that. I have an option course that you can get in this package I'll offer you. You do the same thing. You give an option to buy the beneficial interest in the trust, not the property.
Right, so everything centers around the entity, which might as well be a bowl.
Yeah, and
The equivalent of
here's the beautiful thing about this whole scenario is from a legal standpoint, the beneficial interest in the trust is personal property. Right. From a tax standpoint, the IRS says it's a sale of real estate. You get the best of both worlds. That's pretty cool.
And
Selling on here's what we're just talking about. Selling on an option, sell an option on the beneficial interest. Otherwise, if you sell it on the house, they get an equitable interest, even if you have to kick them out for non-payment. They have equitable interest in your house that you have to foreclose. Right. Too expensive.
I'll be quiet. I'll buy it.
Okay. Naming your naming your trust. As I mentioned earlier, I have a whole chapter in here on how to name and number your trust. Now, why is this important? If you go talk to an attorney tomorrow and say, you heard this guy from Illinois talk about naming the trust, he'll think I'm crazy. But I tell you, I've been doing it for 40 years. And here's how this works. If you name that trust the 123 Vine Street Trust, that doesn't sound real intimidating, does it? Let's say you named it something a little intimidating. Let me give you just an extreme example. I mean, I'm sure you wouldn't do this, and I'd never do this. But there's a lot of money flowing into South Florida right now from South America. Suitcases of cash buying real estate. If I was forming a trust out of Florida, I might name it the Medellin Partners Trust. What? Do you want to sue those guys?
No, no.
The Medellin? Does anybody know what Medellin means? The Medellin cartel, have you ever heard of it out of South America? You want to sue those guys? I don't think so. They don't play by the rules, do they? You might wake up dead in the middle of the night. I speak a lot in California and San Francisco in particular, and there's a lot of money flowing into San Francisco from Asia, China in particular. They come in, they pay all cash, full price. It's really hard for the investors like us to find a deal. So if I was forming a trust out there, I might call it the Asian Consortium of Global Real Estate Investors. I mean, you really want to sue a trust. See, lawyers will sue a trust if there's enough money involved, but they don't like suing a trust unless it's a big, big payoff for them because they don't know the horsepower behind the beneficiary. They don't know it's a little old Randy Hughes or a big, big corporation with 20 lawyers just waiting to sue him back. He doesn't know, and lawyers don't like uncertainty. So what's in a name? Everything. I have 28 Section 8 tenants. And many of the trusts holding title to the property they rent are named the Section 8 trust number 10-25-36. Why did I do that? Yeah, if they want to bitch about something, they look up the owner that says Section 8, well, it's the government. They're not going to get anywhere bitching at the government, right? It's all about perception. And I got a whole chapter on naming and numbering your trust. Why would you number the trust? Well, let's think about that. I called up my recorder's office and I said, how many characters are, to talk to the lady who types in, how many characters can you type in? And she said 32. I said, well, thank you very much. And from then on, all my trusts had more than 32 characters. Why? truncates it, right? So if you go online and you want to sue that trust and you put that name in there, you're suing the wrong trust. You better go to the recorder's office and pull out the microfiche and get the full name. That's in my course. Is this stuff fun or what? So everything at stake here is your future as far as your investments, you know, your college education for your kids, new house, new car, your retirement. You're trying to protect your assets. If you were to buy my course on my website, I give a 3-month free membership in the Land Trust University. When I speak like this, if you buy my course tonight, and I brought a whole bunch of them for you, you can take it home tonight, I'll give you 6 months membership in the Land Trust University for free. If you want to stay in after that, it's only $27 a month, month to month. You can get out anytime you want, but I give you full value for that $27. Hell, you spend that at Starbucks, don't you? So what do you get? You get online training, videos of me teaching this material to a live audience. So you can go through the course material and watch me teach it. It's just like having a seminar. You can listen to me on your phone, in your car. It's all mobile friendly. You can use land trusts for foreclosures, subject to, lease options, contract, everything. Every kind of real estate you're doing, you can do with a trust. And as I mentioned earlier, I answer the phone. Because you will have some questions. Probably 8 out of 10 of your questions will be answered by the course. But you want to be able to pick up the phone and call me if you have any other questions. You get all the forms you need, trust agreement, deed, all the management forms you need. If you want to change a trustee, you want to change a beneficiary, they're all included. You don't need anything else. You fill in the blank and you hit print. You got a trust. Oh, I also give you a free consultation with an associate of mine who sets up LLCs and corporations for my students. You can talk to him for free. You can find out what's the best state to form it in. Should it be a single member or a multi-member? And then if you want to use him to set up an LLC, fine, but there's no obligation. That's just a freebie. This was a young man in college who got my course. Let's listen to TJ and see what he's got to say.
My name's TJ. I'm from Illinois. I'm 21 years old. I'm a senior in college. I recently acquired a piece of land down in Florida, and I knew a little bit about land trust, but not much. After finding some research and doing some online, I came across Randy's website. I wasn't too sure about it all at first, but I did call him because he had his number on the webpage, and I eventually bought the Land Trust Made Simple home study course. The course was great, and I was actually able to make my own land trust 100% by myself. No attorneys involved, no realtors involved, and that's me with very little real estate experience. If I can do it, anyone can do it, and I want to reassure you that it's well worth the money.
Wasn't that a nice testimonial? I didn't even write it. He just sat down and spoke it. Still not sure you can do it? Well, this is an example of my the support I give you through the Land Trust University. The call, you can be video or just audio if you want to, but we do a Zoom call once a month where I give training. And here I was answering the question that came up earlier about whether you should use your own LLC as the trustee. But that's just an example. So the bottom line is you work hard to acquire your assets, invest a little bit of time and a little bit of money in protecting those assets. You can't wait till the house is on fire to buy fire insurance, right? You got to be proactive. Today's special price gives you everything you need, 6 months membership. You get an electronic version and you can get a hard copy version of the course. Now, let me mention this. I do have a combo deal. About 2 years after I put out the basic course, I had students calling me saying, this is great stuff, do you have any more? So I sat down and I wrote the advanced course. And the advanced course is more asset protection techniques using a trust, and I teach you how to operate a personal property trust. So if you want to put your car, your boat, your motorcycle, your shotgun in a trust, it goes in a personal property trust, not a land trust. It's not real estate, it's personal property. So I teach you how to do that in the advanced course. And then the final offer is, I call it the Elite Package. It's all 4 of my courses. Audio, video, everything. I have a privacy and asset protection course and an option course. It's called Huge Profits, Low Risks with Options. And this is really cool stuff. And nobody's doing it except this gentleman up here in the front row. So you'd have very little competition. Buying options on houses. You can do lease options. I teach you how to do that in here too with a trust. Or you can do a pure option. I know that's kind of hard to think of, but let me just give you a real short example. I like to drive through neighborhoods and look for roofs that are bad. And if a roof is really, really bad, I know it's leaking on the inside, and if they could afford a new roof, they'd have a new roof, right? So I knock on the door and say, hey, I noticed you got a bad roof. Yep. Why don't you get a new one? Don't have the money. Well, how much does it cost? 15 grand. How much do you have? 10. Okay, I'll give you $5,000 for an option to buy your house in 5 years at today's price. That's a pretty good deal for them, isn't it? They get a roof, stops dripping on the inside, and it doesn't cost them a dime. And when 5 years goes by, you may end up buying the house, or you may sell the option back to them. They refinance their house and pay you out of the proceeds. This is really cool stuff. Management free, no tenants, no toilets, no nothing. You just forget about that deal for 5 years, and it grows in value and pays you off. So that's just a taste of what we can do with options. So that's all included. If you buy these courses on my website, it's $1,550. I do give you a personal guarantee. If you buy the course and you get it, and for whatever reason it's not what I promised you, send it back. I'll give you a full refund, and we'll still be friends, okay? Not a problem. Oh, if you want the course autographed, I'll be glad to sign it for you. Why would that be of value? Because when Mr. Land Trust goes to that great trust in the sky, you're going to have my signature on it, and the value is just going to shoot right up. You can sell it on eBay for twice, right? I'm just kidding, but I will sign it. I have a lot of people that want me to sign it, and I'll be glad to do that. It's fun. So when you buy my course, you get all this stuff, everything you need to use trust. And from this day forward, you'll start doing nothing but trust. Everything you do will be in a trust. Nobody will track you. Nobody will know what you're doing. Any other questions? Fill out that form, give it to, well, Sasha's not here. She's my assistant, but she was not feeling well, so give it to the gentleman back there at the table. Yes, ma'am. You're here? So take the form to them. They'll give you the course tonight. I'll send you an email in the next couple of days to get you into the Land Trust University and get you all the electronic stuff. But other than that, if you have no more questions, thank you. And if there was ever a time to clap, it'd probably be now. Okay? Thank you.